All right, folks, we got a old school Fleetwood. Got hydraulic issues. Got a power. I call these power gears because that's what they are. It's power gear. Old school power gear. Lippert bought them out. And looking under it, we can see that it's power down spring return. And on these, even though it's 4-point leveling system, there's only 3, you see, F, RR, CR. So both of the front jacks are together, and the right rear, roadside rear, curbside rear. So, and then the 2 backs are separated. And the valve over here, that's your dump valve. That valve is when you want to retract all the jacks, allows for the fluid to be forced back into the reservoir from the springs pulling the jacks up. Customer was stuck somewhere, and he had called a mobile tech to come out. He said the guy worked on the jacks for 6 hours and still couldn't figure it out. So he opened up the hydraulic lines to get the jacks up. I'm not hating on the guy, because at the end of the day, if you can't get them up for whatever reason and the guy's got to go home, even if you could have figured it out, but you don't have a part, that will get them up. If you open the hydraulic line, the springs will push all the fluid on the ground, and that will get them up. So let's see what we got. So this is manual controls. All of this stuff matters. All the stuff that we're looking at, all of this stuff matters. This is a diesel pusher, has air brakes. We're going to pull this panel off and see if I have the right park brake is on. Okay. Power button comes on. Now here's where it's helpful if you have a partner. If not, I'll go see if my Cottywompo has a connection for this. I just want to see if this has all the controls built into the touchpad. So some of these have controllers, some of these just have the controller is built into this right here. Okay, the first thing I do after I identify the system that I'm working on is pull up the documentation, the service manual. I mean, this is 22 years old. You can't remember everything. So when I pull up the documentation, I see I pulled up the touchpad and it only had communication lines on it. So that means there's a controller somewhere. And I'm looking for that controller, because that's where all of these wires come from, where you see all the wire loom tore up. It's probably going to be in the front under the hood, because that's where the touchpad is, and the touchpad has a harness and it has to plug into the controller. It could be in a compartment, but on an old girl like this, I wouldn't be surprised if it's right in here. All right, guys, so I have figured out what's kind of going on with the system here. As you can see, I have the jacks down. They are operating from the touchpad now. I found the controller. I will show you where that's at. But you can test these by applying power and ground screwdriver. Problem we're having is some of the magnets are weak. So sometimes they are sending enough juice to the electromagnet to open it, and sometimes they're not. And then the major problem, because after I took them all off, and they're really corroded. So like that heavy corrosion is why, part of the reason why they're weak and making bad connection. Now, man, that's perfect fit, man. Good. This valve, even with a good magnet, is not opening. This is the dump valve. So I gotta go in here and get this one off. I'm gonna need a bit of a longer extension. Let me go get that. But before I do, I'll take you over and show you. All right, so this is the valve. It's a Hydac valve. It's an old one. It doesn't have the override on it. All right, and a lot of fluid should have came out of there. All of these guys should be, you know, all the fluid should be going back into the reservoir from the springs. The other issue with these a lot of times is when the springs get weak, they won't pull them back up. So I don't think that's the issue, because when the guy was able to get them up by opening the lines, which means the springs pulled them up. Does it mean it's pulled them up with sufficient pressure to pull them up and overcome the fluid? No, it doesn't mean that. But yeah, this thing is 150 bucks, guys. That's what that is. All we got to do is actuate one. This is the bundle where all the hot wires come. So I can go, let's see, roadside rear, curbside rear. This will be curbside rear. So what I'm gonna do is ground out this one. So I'm gonna activate this valve and see if the jack starts going up. That yellow wire is the yellow wire is the one that needs the ground. So even though the system is off, it is like I said, it's always hot, because the way whoever has this wired is that it is on the hot side of the main hot wire going to the solenoid for the motor itself. So it's always hot. So I'm gonna get my power probe hooked back up. All right, so when you hit the retract button, it opens all the valves again. But since the dump valve, it also, for the retract, is supposed to open the dump valve. The dump valve opens, then all the fluid funnels through the dump valve back into here. When I do it here, it's hot because it's coming through the coil. When I give it a ground, here you see all the fluid that's coming out? It's this gushing, bro. Well, that's the jack coming back up. And that was the jack over there. It has come all the way back up. So again, besides making a mess, I see that my problem isn't really with the three jack valves. It's with the dump valve. The dump valve is blocking it. You know what I'm saying? And I could do that test with every single coil. And if it spits out a bunch of stuff, then those coils are working fine. Those valves are working fine. But the dump valve is the problem. So and I've tested this coil. This coil is even good, even though it's all corroded. And I would replace it. If it was my unit, I would bite the bullet and replace all of it, so I'm not stuck as they all start to fail at one by one, because this is a 2004, so this unit is 22 years old. Get rid of these suckers. So when I replace this one, it's going to come with one with a manual override. So at least they'll go up by only doing the bare minimum and doing this dump valve. And hey, if they don't go down, well, worst case scenario, you just don't get the level of coach while you're camping. But this one is super important because you need to be able to leave. So there's that. All right. Well, let me put my stuff up because, like I said, that's proof positive. That's what we got going on here. These things, sometimes they do get full of crud, but yeah, this valve isn't opening. That valve isn't opening. So instead of taking it off the lines, guys, just pull a dump valve and hit the send the negative trigger to each coil to activate the coil. It'll open the valve. That lets you get the jack up for the customer, but at the same time, you're getting a real diagnosis because you can assure them that, hey, that valve is good, that coil's good, this valve is good, this coil's good. And here, oh, it is a power level. That's why I had a hard time finding the manual, because I kept seeing the power level. I was like, nah, it's not that. It is that power level. All this stuff is discontinued. You know what I mean? But what I had to do to find the controller is trace out. I just chose a jack leg valve to work with. I chose a purple one, and I used the Southwire. I used the Southwire kit. Awesome toner. All right. I used that toner, and it's a receiver somewhere anyway. Traced it out, followed the loom from back here all the way up till it kept going to the front, and this is where I found it. Now the customer had, like, he's hiding the thing, had this box built right in front of that compartment and couldn't tell that it was a compartment there, but I could tell from underneath this is where the wire was going. So I started moving stuff around and move that crap out of the way, and boom, there's our controller. Because this thing is having an issue to where it will stop working altogether and won't do anything, and when I pull the main power, then it would do it. When I say the main power, in the power distribution box, that $1,000 box that's in the back that has all the solenoids and fuses and stuff, I'll show you. So that connector is the connector that goes to the touchpad. So when I pull the P12 wire off of this box in the back, it resets that controller, and then the thing starts working again. Let me show you where that's at. So the last tech had a real hard time with this. When you have these diags and there's multiple issues that are in tandem like this, it can be a hard diagnosis, but you have to focus on one part at a time, definitively figure that out, and then move on to the next part. On this dealio, we had a clogged valve, we had an intermittent electrical issue that shut down the whole system periodically, and then we had an electrical problem with the controller that you will see coming up. Right here in this compartment, and I've cleaned it all down with brake clean again. So now I need to hit the button. All right, so what's leaking is this line. Looks like it's leaking on from the 90 and from this guy right here. And the hose looks like it's seen better days as well. Set the light back there. He's supposed to be holding down the retract button. This wire wasn't connected, but that's the power for the pump and let the jacks down. Nothing's happening. I got to get my power probe hooked up. I think we got an issue with the controller as well. All right, so the problem is, so this is going to 0. It's being grounded out, but it's a weak ground. But this one's never grounding out. When I give it a ground, the jacks go up. Because the retract valve or the dump valve is never getting the signal to open. It gets that from the controller. This is on the green wire. All right, guys, so what I found As I was taking my power readings, you know, I wasn't getting my signal in the back on my dump valve. Blown fuse, blown 3-amp fuse. But without knowing where that controller is, which the guy who spent 6 hours on this, I'm sure he didn't know where that was. Me and Pete, we started on this around 7 a.m. It's 8, 1 hour. We figured it out. And now the reason we were able to do this in an hour is because I have the different tools and equipment that allows me to do certain things quickly. I invested in these tools like the toners and the power probe and the training and just general knowledge that none of the stuff comes free. But the first thing I did was to look this up. So I knew the components that I was looking for. I also have a schematic. I knew what the wires did. So even though, well, that makes a difference, man, having the information. I knew I was looking for a controller and I wasn't going to stop until I found it, because I knew that's the place where I have to go first. Because I have the wires, so they have to go to a controller. Because the touchpad is just data cables on the back. It doesn't have a controller on the back of the touchpad. So now our jacks are all the way up. Let's verify. Jacks down, light off? No. Okay, the jacks down light, that's a different issue. That's there's a sensor on here, like a plunger. Some of them have a plunger sensor. Some of them use a pressure sensor. I can look on the schematics for that. But that's the issue for this. Let's see. Dump valve, and sometimes the float switch could be controlling that. It could just be low on fluid, and when the float switch gets all the fluid back, it can say that the jacks are up. So we'll figure that out on here. Dump, curbside rear, right, roadside rear, front jacks, that's our ground, that's our float switch. Yeah, looks like there's no electronics going to each jack, so that has to be, the float switch is controlling that. Have to put some more fluid in it while they're up. All right, guys, another win for RV Tech Pro and his customers. All right, so you see my jacks down light is off now. That's because on this system, which is a very old system, the float switch reads the level of the fluid, and when the level is below enough to raise the float switch, it thinks that a jack is down because it doesn't have all the fluid back in it. So now its system's on, the light is off, and all right, so the guy who took the 6 hours, we're not bashing him because we don't know what tools he had, we don't know what training he had. And it's easy when you're on a mobile call and you're under pressure, the customer wants to go home and they're looking at you, to kind of get caught up on all the different things, especially having 4 different problems on the system. All the valves has been replaced. We're going to test the system out. These new valves have overrides in them, so in a worst case scenario type deal, you can take an Allen key and manually open the valves. So I'm going to hit the front jack. I hear them. Okay. Front's going up. I'm going to hit rear jacks. There it is. I feel the unit moving. Jacks are down. Jacks are down. All right. Looking in here, got all our new valves with adjustments. This is the hose that's leaking. The hose is physically damaged and it's leaking.